Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 13, Aggression. Aggression is defined as behavior that is intended to do harm to another person. Basically, there are two types of aggression. Hostile aggression is that which is motivated by feelings of anger, hostility, fear, other strong emotions. Instrumental aggression is cold-blooded. It's intended to cause harm in the service of some secondary motive, such as committing a crime, getting attention, advancing some ideology. Interestingly, hostile aggression is related to temperature. There are more violent crimes in warmer places. There are more violent crimes during warmer seasons. In fact, there are more batters hit by pitchers during hotter games than when the weather is cooler. There are a number of explanations for this, including that heat makes people uncomfortable and they misattribute that discomfort to some other person, and that people are in contact with each other more in warmer weather. The contact hypothesis, however, cannot explain why batters are more likely to be hit by pitches during hotter games. The relationship between violence in media, movies, video games, television, etc., and violent behavior by people who view these things is complicated. There is a small but significant effect of viewing violence on people's future behavior, but only among those who are already predisposed to violence. People who are rejected often feel emotional pain. They describe this as a broken heart, hurt feelings. And in fact, parts of the brain that interpret the emotional components of pain, such as the anterior cingulate cortex, become overly active when people experience emotional rejection. Oxytocin has been dubbed the love hormone. It is increased when people are bonding with others and has been associated with attachment to loved ones. However, it has a dark side. While it increases our attachment to those people that we like, it increases our intolerance toward and aggression towards others, people in the outgroup. Inequalities in income and wealth are associated with a number of social ills, including substance abuse, poor health, and homicides. Environmental cues also affect aggressive behavior. In a study in which people were given the opportunity to retaliate against another participant, the researchers found that retaliation was more likely and stronger when there was a gun in the room as opposed to when there was a badminton racket in the room. Note that in this study, no actual shocks were given. However, the participants did believe that they were shocking someone. Dehumanization is when we see an outgroup as less than human. The simple fact of dehumanizing an outgroup can make aggression against them more likely. The Rwandan genocide was preceded by a year or so of dehumanizing comments on the radio about the Tutsis. Culture, of course, has a tremendous effect on all types of social behavior, including aggression. In some cultures, aggression is socially so unacceptable that it rarely occurs. In others, it's very common and tends to occur frequently. One example of this is the culture of honor. In an honor culture, there is an importance attached to one's reputation. This can be traced to the need to protect property that can be moved. People whose ancestors were farmers are less likely to have this culture than those whose ancestors were herders. It's far easier to steal a herd of cattle than a field of wheat. The culture of honor is more prevalent in the American South than in other parts of the country. In fact, one can predict to some extent the homicide rate county by county by looking at the percentage of residents whose ancestors were herders versus the percentage whose ancestors were farmers. In an interesting study from 1996, participants were asked to fill out a questionnaire and then take it down the hall to the receptionist. Along the way, they were bumped into and insulted by a large research assistant. Participants who were from the South were much more likely to get physiologically aroused and angry than those from the North. While the South has higher rates of homicide, these are almost exclusively due to argument-related murders as opposed to those from some other felony. In other words, people in the South kill each other over insults more than people in other parts of the country. Some cultures are much more rape-prone than others. In these cultures, women are seen as less than and are treated as subservient to men. Their civil rights are limited, and these cultures tend to have much higher levels of violence in general, including frequent warring and an overemphasis on male toughness. An evolutionary explanation for aggression would suggest that we are less likely to be aggressive toward our blood relatives. And in fact, in stepfamilies, there's far more violence from parents towards stepchildren than towards their biological children. In fact, stepfathers are much, much more likely to kill a stepchild than their own child. This difference is recognized for many, many years, as seen in the stories of fairy tales and step-parents. There are significant differences in the amount of violence committed by males and females in most cultures. The violent crime rates are much higher for both male perpetrators and victims. Lots of explanations have been proposed for this, including differences in hormone levels, evolution, and socialization. One explanation is the precarious manhood hypothesis. This is the idea that men's identity revolves around strength and toughness, which is much more easily lost in competition than females' gender identities, and that losing this in a competition can easily trigger aggressive behavior. Psychopaths or sociopaths are individuals who do not have conscience. They are less able to see fear and pain in other people. They're likely to engage more in instrumental aggression than in hostile aggression. That is, they are cold-blooded. What then can we do about reducing aggression? Construal, or the way that we interpret events and give meaning to them, is important as a source of both conflict and peacemaking. Understanding other people's motivations can go a long way toward diffusing a situation. One thing to watch out for is what's called reactive devaluation. In a conflict, people have a tendency to attach less value to the opinions of the other party, regardless of their objective merit. That is, we may turn down an idea because it is so-and-so's idea, rather than because we disagree with it. Avoiding this can be an important step in coming to a negotiated solution. In addition, overly simplistic reasoning and rhetoric can reduce the other side to a caricature. This makes coming to a common understanding more difficult. Rarely are people's positions reducible to a simple idea. There is usually some nuance and complexity. Understanding that nuance is key to resolving conflicts. One example of this is what are called ad hominem attacks, in which people attack the person rather than the message. This is always a logical fallacy and impairs the ability to reach any kind of agreement. Of course, to reduce conflict and to come to a resolution requires communicating. When adversaries cease communicating, they cease being able to reach a resolution. Next time, we'll move on to a more positive aspect of human behavior: altruism and cooperation. See you then.